Hey, and welcome back to another webinar hosted by Leadership Network and the MicroChurch Next team. I'm Brian Johnson here with Rob Wegner, our other guide, and Taylor McCall, who we'll hear from for the rest of this time together. So as you know, we host this time every week, 12:30 at least Eastern Standard Time. I don't know where you're listening from today, but we host this just as a place to gather those of us that are exploring the microchurch paradigm and this radical commitment and disciple making that can lead to new forms of the church. We want to be missionally imaginative and curious. And so far this year, we've gathered at this time every week just as a way to say, if Jesus is through the power of the Spirit sort of poking at you to think through what other forms of the church are out there. How do we get at this command to go make disciples and see these extended spiritual families emerge? What does it look like? Who are the people practicing this? This is the space for you. This is the fire that we want to create to say, you might feel like you're alone or weird or at the fringes. And maybe in your circle you are, but there are more of us out here. We want to create that family for you. So Rob, I'll kick it to you to talk about the series we're in.
Welcome to the Island of Misfit Toys. Glad you're here. Hey, we want you to know, we've also been hearing from some of you. We know that the hub with Leadership Network is not the greatest, smoothest experience. So you need to know, we found out about this brand new technology. I guess it's called YouTube. Just brand spanking new.
You can be a star.
It's right. So all the episodes are now on YouTube. So it'll be a whole lot easier to find and a whole lot easier to share. So you can look for the MicroChurch Next playlist there and let it drone in the background while you're doing other things. And we're in this series that we've been kind of jumping in and out of throughout the year called Stories from the Field. And we get the honor of introducing you to some of our heroes and some of our friends that are living this smaller way. And it's mostly invisible and hidden, like most of Jesus' life was, and but so precious to the Father. And it's also a signpost to our future. And so today, man, I'm glad we get to share the story of Taylor and the community. He's actually been a part of like two really amazingly powerful prophetic emerging movements, one down south, and now he's come up to the St. Louis area. But Taylor, I've had the privilege of having a long night with you to hear your story, and it's something I treasure. And I just wanted to kick it off, say, we don't have 3 hours tonight like we did that other time, but can you share a bit of your backstory, man? Like what makes you you? I know you're also someone who had leadership and what's been the predominant model of church, and the Lord's called you another way, and just share a little bit of your story, man. Some of the highlights.
Yeah, you guys said some of your heroes and also some of your friends. I wonder which one am I?
You're both. Deal with it. You are, man. Right, you're like a legend to us, dude.
Then life goal accomplished. Be Rob Wegner's hero. Oh man. So the question was, why am I the way I am?
Yeah, that's it. Why are you the way you are? Why are you like that?
Lots of.
How'd you meet Jesus, man? How'd he get you where you're at today?
Lots of mistakes and trying to go the other way. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. The whole "why are you the way you are? What made you the way you are?" question. I think I like that question even deeper than like pre-Jesus, because I believe that we are all made in a specific way, with a specific genetic that kind of wires and can even guide just that genetic. Like, I think you can meet a 5-year-old and not overly psychoanalyze, but kind of press in and go, oh man, I see some of this. Like, I see some prophetic in them, or I see some teacher in them. Like, look at the way they're interacting with other kids. And So I do think I was designed like everyone else, with a unique bent. So then, let's get even more psychological. Then all of our variables, our family, our environment, just like growing up in the South, which me and Brian have in common, and growing up with a specific family structure, and the loves of my city and all that kind of begin to shape who you are. But then comes Jesus. And it's funny, I was talking with a group of guys. It's interesting. I was talking with a group of guys today about our faith and how we have this faith. We're raised in a faith wherever we grow up contextually, but also we can all have a faith encounter. And I won't go too deep into the story. I just think it's fascinating because it was from a Kuwait. It was from a Indian, like a brother from India, who was a pastor in Kuwait, leading a church of essentially no professing Christians, 40 or 50 Hindus and Muslims, all of whom wanted to know Jesus. And I think in some ways had encountered Jesus through that experience. And I like this story because I think there's cultural faith, right? Like religion or something like that. And then there's our encounter. So that I encountered Jesus, man, when I was 17 years old without any effort of my own. I think I was actually like trying to meet a girl, and I thought I could meet her in this space, or he encountered me is really the better understanding. And that moment is in large why I am who I am, because I think I encountered him in the wild. And I encountered him in a way that was incredibly disruptive, and it marked me. I could say so many things, but I just want to tell this story so bad. We recently were on a family trip to Wyoming and Montana, and we looked for bears the whole time. And we're hiking, and we're on, in these parks, Tetons, Yellowstone, all these things. And we want to see a bear. And we finally spot one. I'll tell you the whole story later. It was amazing. It's in the wild. It's got a cub with it. So it's pretty terrifying. And we just are in awe of this bear. And we watch it. And then before we know it, I'm not kidding, I have a picture of this, about 250 people are around us in, like, let's say 45 minutes time watching this bear. Right. And I don't know if y'all have ever had this experience, if, like, with all the variables I just named, wanting to see a bear, searching for one, waiting, and then encountering it. Right. Well, in contrast, so the next day we're leaving and we see this wolf and bear exhibit right outside of the national park that we were at. And I'm like, man, we should have done that the whole time, So we go, I pay a bunch of money and take my whole family. I have 5 children. We all go, and we go to this wolf and bear exhibit, and very, very uninteresting. We stand there for, I mean, especially my kids, I noticed quickly within about 5 minutes, they're like wanting to go play on this cheap playground 20 feet away. These 2 amazing grizzlies are standing in front of us with a big kind of moat-like chasm in between us, and we're all safe, and they're beautiful. They're alive, like they're doing their thing, and just wasn't that intriguing. And the whole way on our next drive, as we left, my wife and I, her name's Lindsay, we were just talking about what was it about that experience that was so different. And I kept thinking about this encounter I had with this wild, dangerous, as some have said, like reckless Jesus, when I was 17. And that marked me. I've been on this pursuit and this search of continuing to be near that Jesus, and then ultimately wanting to help others be near that Jesus by making tons of mistakes along the way, learning from those mistakes. You know, when you're young and or old, you're arrogant and you're feisty and you're zealous and you're like, we're going to do it this way and this is the right way and we got to try this. And I just feel like the past 23, 24 years of my life have been an experiment of saying, how long, O Lord, will you hide your face from me? I will wait for you. And reminding myself that those who seek the Lord will find him when they seek him with their whole heart. And I'm just going to keep doing that. And, you know, when I encounter Jesus in that exhibit, it's never really been quite enough. I want the wild one. And I'm not even suggesting that one's totally wrong and one's totally right. I'm saying this has been my pursuit. This has marked me along with my genetic and how I think I'm wired and the ways that God has kind of gifted me and designed me to fight for the weak. Like I was doing that when I was little, and to see things that were missing and to want to create solutions for those things. Like all that was not something I necessarily trained myself in. It was just a genetic, like, let's fix this problem or let's make this room better. Or, and again, like you guys know, in like the leadership conversation, that usually comes with a tremendous amount of missteps and mistakes, because you're running forward and you're running into walls and you're running into people. And so, yeah, I'm still on that pursuit. Praise the Lord, by his grace, I would say, or whatever it is, by his like grip. I'm still on that pursuit of finding that wild Jesus.
Yeah. Well, this was worth it. I think that we could just stop there if we wanted to. That was fantastic.
Right. Thanks, guys.
I love the metaphor.
Me too, man.
I gave you some questions and I just texted Rob and said, scrap those. So, based on where you just went, I want to
go wherever you want, man. I
have 3 little sections that I want us to cover. It's just something I feel like Jesus has been bringing me back to lately. I was telling guys in our little network here, I think that there is, you know, we talk about spiritual disciplines, like one that we often leave out is the spirit of the discipline of remembrance. I think it's a spiritual discipline of the people of Israel, always just retelling the story of what God has done. And maybe it is a spiritual discipline. I didn't read it in Foster's book. Maybe it's in there and I skipped that chapter. But so like I want to go one section on what he's done, and then one section on what he's doing, and then the final section on what he will do. So like we're going to aim for this in like 30 minutes.
Do it.
So think about it. I'll do like
I'm used to Joe Rogan and it's 3.5 hours.
Right.
So y'all just cut me off.
What he's done would be like the transition from predominant model worship leader to what you were doing in Birmingham, if you can tell that story in 10 minutes. And then we'll try to raise our hands when we're about there and go like, what's he doing now? What took you to Alton? And that commitment to join in the network there. And then the last 10 minutes or so, we'll just hit what he will do or what you're seeing into the future with Brave Cities. So
yeah,
what he's done.
Okay, man. I mean, it's 10 minutes. Come on, but I'm going to do my best.
Deal with it, man.
Well, I can. It's just going to be like, wait, what? Go deeper into that. Like a lot of my idea of, or my understanding of knowing Jesus, and then the kingdom came in later, but let's just start with knowing Jesus is kind of connected to like my understanding of relationship, particularly marriage, or like a romantic relationship. So like first you just have the encounter, right? So let's just try to draw those parallels, because it does inform my journey, but maybe a lot of people's, without understanding or really pressing into this. So you have that encounter, and then when it's real, like when you really saw that woman or that man, I mean, it's just all about romance. it's like, I got to see her more. I got to hear her voice. I got to smell her. I got to see a text come up. So like draw the parallel. And, I think people make, especially like people far along their journey, theologians like you guys, they make light of this romance time, but it's actually quite valuable to just fall madly in love with Jesus. And I mean, what you want to do, you want to romance, you want to date, you want to sing. You want that emotion, like that droning music over, and that's all I wanted with my wife when we would hang out. I just wanted low lighting and romantic music.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be as close as possible where my roommates in college wouldn't be like, hey dude, you shouldn't do that. So I just think it's very similar. And naturally, I just wanted to sing. I was a musician, so I started playing music for Jesus and about God, and I got better, and that became a thing for me. But I never really bought into this, like, that's who I am. I'm a worship leader and a songwriter, and that's what I'm going to do. It. And it took me a long time to understand why 6, 7, 8, 9 years in, did this not hit me like it did 4 months in. But as married men, that romantic song or that date night or whatever, it doesn't hit us like it did 4 months in with our wives. I think it's a parallel. It's similar. Like, we're on this journey, and the journey takes us to different phases. So like what I call my first phase with Jesus was the romance phase. And then what I call my second phase with Jesus was the knowledge. Like, I wanted to know him in a different way, like, than just romance. So that's when you start asking questions like, tell me about your parents. Tell me about why you played tennis. My wife played tennis all throughout her life in college. Tell me, what was your home life like? You start asking these questions, and then, like, paralleled, it looks a lot like, for me, it looked like theology. Like, I want to know the scriptures. I want to know why this says this, and what's the whole meta narrative mean. And then you got this one verse that says this that seems to contradict this other verse, right? Can I get an amen? So I was like, why are these things different? And it just all about knowing him. And then what I call the next phase was partnership. And that's really what called me into a different place. That's when I was in Birmingham, Alabama, I asked Jesus, where are you going? And he said, you don't see where I'm going yet? And I said, no, show me. And I looked at his life, the scriptures, where the Spirit was leading me. And he said, I'm going to the poor. I'm going to the hurting. And I want to heal the sick. And so I said, teach me how to heal the sick. And I was really informed by, and we could talk about this some, but I'm trying to land the plane. I was really informed by his instruction to the first church planters, or what I thought were like the initially first church planters in Matthew 10 or Luke 10, when he sent the 12 out, the 72 out. And he said, I want you, he gave a few instructions, and he said, I want you to go heal the sick. And so I really wanted to learn what it was like to not just find solutions to the problems, but also the problems be my problems. Like the broken street lights be my broken street lights, and the hurting schools be my hurting schools, and the scary streets at night be my scary streets at night. So that began to shape a whole new understanding of ecclesiology, of how does the church manifest itself in a city, and how do we build better cities in our cities. So we did that for 10 years. That's what my wife and I did with an amazing group of people, and worked on building a better city within our city, what we would call a kingdom city or a kingdom ecosystem, or what we've kind of titled Brave Cities. Not to plug or anything, but to try to, like, say, hey, maybe we're not just supposed to change our cities. Maybe that was actually a little off, like the wrong idea. Maybe we were supposed to build new cities of refuge, as the scriptures call them, within our city. And that, of course, kind of led me on a path to meeting cool dudes like you and a guy up here near St. Louis named Hugh, and we've worked with a lot of other people to see if this can be a real manifestation and incarnation in their city.
I want to ask, would you unpack just a little bit more, the city within a city on the hill?
Well, I'll say a couple things, and then any like probing questions you can dig into. But yeah, so simply put, I believe the church has a calling, kind of as a undertone or a outflowing of the Great Commission, to go and not only be a city on a hill, but build a city on a hill, a better city within our cities. I think we started in a city. We call it an ecosystem, the garden, but really it was just an economy of life together, eating, drinking, spending time. We don't know how long that was, but we started in an ecosystem and we'll end in an ecosystem, is what we believe is called the Holy City, New Jerusalem, or Zion, or God's city, the place where God reigns. And without getting too kind of controversial or creating too many questions, I don't believe God was ever promised us that he could reign over our cities like St. Louis or Kansas City or Birmingham. I actually think he said the opposite directly. He said, I've given somewhat of authority to the evil one to reign over these cities, to be the ruler of these cities. I want you to build better cities where I reign over those cities. And those cities, in a sense, expand throughout our cities and make our regions, our communities, our neighborhoods, and our cities better, because they submit to the reign of Jesus. They submit to the authority and to the teaching and to the actual rule or understanding of Jesus, which of course is far easier said than done, is not accomplished by a set of principles or, spiritual laws, but by a total submission to him. And that can manifest itself as an economy, as, businesses that function a little differently, but still bless the city, homes and tables and neighborhoods that posture themselves in the way that Jesus would posture himself. And yeah, I don't think it's complex, but I think it's hard. So ask some questions to dig a little deeper into that if you want to.
Yeah, well, let's get into the the embodiment of that for you guys in Alton right now. Kind of give us the pull back the veil and tell us the story of the city that's being built inside the city.
I'm going to share another thought that helps kind of, segment the building. If you look at Ephesians 4, you have these characters that Jesus gave to us, and we're all one of them, or two of them, or three of them. I don't know how he divides it up, but he said, I gave to the church, not a gift, like I have a gift, but I gave to the church Rob Wegner. I gave to the church Brian Johnson. I gave to the church Taylor McCall. And of course, everyone. I gave to the church these people: apostles, prophets, evangelists, shepherds, and teachers. And all of them have unique roles that come together, that create two primary things. They create unity and they create maturity. The inverse is, I think, our enemy, the one who's against the ways of God, tries to create disunity and tries to create a shallow pursuit of God, or immaturity. So I wish I could kind of categorize these thoughts, because they're super important, at least in my description of why we do what we do. I also think, briefly, I think the temptations of Jesus in the wilderness are the vast, like it's a summary of all the temptations that we experience as we're anointed to go and build the city as his followers. We're tempted to create quick results through something like turning stones to bread. You feel me? Like, if I could turn stones to bread, what can I do? I can feed the whole world. Boom, done, problem solved. We're tempted to create this massive display of God's glory so we can woo the world into how awesome he is. So if I start this huge thing, like throw yourself off the mountain, angels are going to come and catch you and everybody will be in awe of you. So if I create this massive thing that everybody looks at and they're like, it's got to be God. Jesus is like, nah, that's not the way of my Father. Or if I take dominion over, all these cities, like I'll give you rulership over all this stuff, government, legislation, whatever else, then the kingdom can rule there. And I think all three of those things, Jesus was like, nah, that's not the way I'm going. I'm going underground. I'm going subversive. And that's not how we're going to rule here. And I think we're still tempted with those things. And he said, go and do this. So take that thought and now take this thought. Luke 10, he said, go and create persons of peace, go and heal the sick and cleanse the lepers, and go and cast out demons. So the way we like to look at that when we're building an ecosystem in a city is person of peace. We're trying to build favor in our city. That could take 3 to 5 years, right? Of just presence, commitment,
minimum.
Consistency. That's right. Like, let's just say for the sake of argument, the first 3 to 5 years in Alton, all we're doing is building a person of peace. And I don't think that's a person, by the way. A lot of people would argue that. That's okay. I'm probably wrong, but I don't think that's a person. I think it's a spirit, a favor that comes and resides over the faith work that you're building in the city, where they want to see more of what God is doing. Second thing he said is heal the sick and cleanse the lepers. Well, that can't be literal because I haven't found one leper in my city. I've been looking for years. And I think he means the outcast, the poor, the marginalized, the hurting, the fatherless, the widow. Like, I think he's saying there's a sickness, there's a spiritual sickness that's creating a cancer in souls. Let's create healing for them. And all of these things, by the way, we can start to, build innovative spaces like community centers, gyms, coffee shops, whatever, to create favor and unity in a city. We started an amazing event center and community space here in Alton called the Post Commons, where we have coffee and brunch, where we do co-working, where we host events, where we have all kind of amazing encounters on a daily basis. But the whole idea behind it is creating a person of peace in our city. And I'll share one quick example that's near to us right now. About a month ago, a matriarch in our city here in Alton passed away tragically, young. Young lady who runs a restaurant downtown. Rob, I think you've actually been there with us, and I'm not going to get too into her story right now because I might tear up, but tragic death. She was on vacation, got in a car accident. That was actually, she was in a taxi. I mean, it was just nuts. And late 40s, early 50s, Black sister named Yvonne, and the whole town mourned. And about a week and a half after her passing, we were contacted, and her family wanted to have part of her memorial service at the Post. And this took me back, man. Like, really, that's wild, and I could talk about that. I don't want to make too big of a deal of it, but what I know is there was some serious favor and some serious unity and peace that happened in that moment when I watched, because I was kind of a bit of an outsider. I'm still new here, about 3 years in, and I'm watching these relationships that in any normal setting shouldn't be. So that's been the effort. And then you start to move into, and I'll run through these quick, but you start to move into how do we really heal the sick in our community and in our region? Like, how do we build these bridges and these inroads into healing of job creation and family health and education and mentorship, and the fatherless having fathers again, and whatever. Our minds can run wild as innovators of ways we can see the sick healed. And then the lepers, man, these men and women that are on the streets that are outcast that nobody wants to touch, like, let's get them at our tables. Let's cleanse them. Like, how are they cleansed? They're cleansed through family. They're cleansed through sitting at a table eye to eye with me instead of on the ground begging me for money. And cleansing starts to happen. And then, okay, so this is when it gets exciting. I think then we start to see demons cast out. And what I mean by that is, yeah, okay, maybe like laying on of hands, the what's that guy's name? The Garrison, I don't know. Maybe like that kind of demon cast. But I think what he really means is liberation.
Strongholds.
People being strongholds broken, people being delivered in Christ, and with like revival might start to spring up, like what we've always wanted, that revival that we long for 15 years in is starting to happen. It's starting to come up, So yeah, that's the idea. And we want to see that city formed where people know, like, if I go here, there's hope there. I'll never forget in Birmingham, we lived on a street in downtown Birmingham, and people would always come. This is a true story. People would always come and say, is there a church here? And y'all got to understand, this was like 5 Points, Birmingham. Like, we're just in the inner city, of like, no, there's no, this isn't a church. But I knew what they were saying, and I knew what they had heard from others. They weren't coming for money or for panhandling. They were looking for a table. They were looking for some type of healing, and they had heard that there was a church there. And so I think, it sounds better on paper than when you're living it. It's like hard as hell, and you just fumble in the dark, right? One of my friends said, we're just building signposts into the fog. But yeah, that's my best way of describing what we're trying to do.
Tell us about, Brian, I'm sorry, you have something you want to ask, man? I don't want to dominate this thing.
Didn't you have like 3 Roman numerals where we came from and where we're going?
I did, man, but I'm just like, I'm eating this up because I just was reading this passage the other day, what you said of, people like show up at your house. It's like, is the church here? It's like, and it's just one of those stories of, I can't find it now, but like Jesus showed up at this home and the whole village shows up. It's in Mark. That's where it is. And it's like they couldn't do anything because this whole village shows up. And Jesus doesn't have any time to eat. He doesn't have any time to do anything else. But it's like, one time Jesus entered a house and the crowds began to gather again. Soon he and his disciples couldn't even find time to eat. Yeah. And it was just like that picture of, man, people heard Jesus was over there and they were like, it's go time. Like, he's here. Let's go be there. And I think I was just texting Rob. It's like, the language that you're using is fleshing out for me in other ways. Our language of, we want to see our city filled with beauty, justice, and good news. And we've been pressed on that by people. Like, what do you mean by beauty? What do you mean by justice? Like, what are your definitions of those things? And we have convictions on those things. But I remember early on, we were wrestling with just like, good news should be first, and I was like, no, it should really be go bring beauty. And like, let the gospel, like, people long for it because they see restoration and wholeness of beautiful things. They see,
and you got some strong shoulders to stand on there too, man. Like, I have multiple examples of Jesus saying, hey, don't say anything yet. Like, don't say anything right now. It's not time. And people were like, I'm just going to say something. And that's fine, whatever. But like, if anybody taught us to hold off, because the good news, let's even hit on this quick, because this is a good thought. good news is way more than you're dead in your transgressions.
Mm-hmm.
Christ made a way on the cross. Confess with your mouth, believe in your heart, and you'll be saved. If somebody wanted to say that's the best news, I'd be like, totally cool with that. Not going to argue you on that point, but that's not the only good news, man. And this kind of plays in with disciple making too, is good news can be good coffee and a good place to meet in a city.
Mm-hmm.
Man, good news can be like, we're actually sourcing coffee ethically, trying to make it well to honor the farmer that busted his butt growing it and picking it and washing it and mailing it and shipping it. And now we're creating a space where people can see each other's face. My hero, by the way, y'all talked about heroes. My hero's always been Sam Malone from Cheers. I mean, ever since I was young, I was like, this dude created a space where what seemed to be some of the lowest people at a point in their life could come and be where people knew their name. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I'm telling you, I remember being a young dude thinking, I want to create spaces like that.
Yeah, man.
Where folks can come and they walk in and you know their order, you know their name, whatever. Yeah. So that's why I think coffee has been at the forefront of a lot of what we do. But it's so much more than coffee. I was in a barber shop in communities like ours. I was in one recently and I just left freaking floored.
Yeah.
I texted a couple brothers and I was like, hey, barbershop is next.
Yeah.
Like, this is a space where you find family in the most unusual suspects.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think good news expands far beyond that. I think what you're saying about good news is kind of paralleled with what I'm saying about Jesus's third instruction of seeing deliverance or redemption. And yeah, it's weird to think like, oh, wait, we wait maybe several years on that. But I actually think for the church planner, that's a liberating thought. I don't think it's compromised.
Yeah. No.
I think it's a liberating thought to say, hey, go. How would it be compromised to tell any leader, go and be consistent and present in your city for 10 years? Just be there. Don't take a purse.
Yeah.
Don't take a bag of money. You don't need sandals. And by the way, I don't think he was saying walk around barefoot. I think he was saying, I'll provide all that.
Yeah.
Just go and be there. I'll get you what you need. And I'm going to start to build this peace, this favor, these miracles, this healing, and then say, hey, let me tell you about the guy who led me here, or whatever.
Yeah. Hey, we only have a few minutes left. This has been fantastic. I just want you to plug Brave Cities. I know you didn't want to plug it, but I think we got all three of the things, and people can come find you later and ask you to go deep on all those stories. But what he's doing in that last kind of phase is like, I know there's this dream for seeing brave cities emerge. So yeah, just take a few minutes and talk about that.
Yeah, we're actually writing a book right now. Again, like fumbling in the dark, trying to create some kind of signpost into the fog, saying, what if planning the church or organizing the church or gathering the church, releasing the church in your city didn't look only like what we've seen so far? Like, what if there was more emerging, more evolving, to where it began to manifest itself as this interconnected, almost, if I could even say this, more than just decentralized, a distributed ecosystem, where people are finding all things in common in these little pockets throughout your, let's just go street, neighborhood, city, region. Today, I was with a group of people in the Chippewa neighborhood in inner city St. Louis, and we were talking about this a lot. Like, how does this begin to really manifest itself in this community? And they launched a theater, like a community center and theater, where they host open mic nights and dinners. And man, they're just building so much favor in their community. And I know that's going to expand. Others are going to begin to get ideas and innovate and be empowered and released. And that's what happens, guys, is as Jesus starts to reign over a community. It can be 15 people. I'm pretty sure y'all talk about this every week, so I'm preaching to the choir, but know that I'm with you. Like,
bring it.
Yeah. Like people realize I could do something, like I have an idea, or I want to be a part of this work that's happening, and it can bless my city. It can build, convergent spaces where people come together. And so how do we discover Jesus in those places? How do we know him, understand him, romance with him, and share him with others? And so, yeah, the economy is a big part of that. If Hugh and I talked about this for 2 hours, probably for an hour and a half, we would be jumping around to like the business aspect of it, because we live in a culture where people are spending, 8 to 10 hours a day in an education space or a workspace. If you're young, in an education space, if you're post young in a market space. And so we're trying to experiment, and have been for over a decade now, of how those market spaces can actually be under the reign of Jesus, submitted to his rule and his ideas. And then ultimately, like, I think y'all talk a lot about discipleship on this platform. Like, that's how disciples are made. I just want to say, not even about Brave Cities. I do not think we have a discipleship problem. So that goes against all the books and clever ideas that are out right now. But I see disciples being made everywhere I go. We all make disciples every day in what we're obsessed about. It's funny, my 4-year-old daughter came up to me last night, and this is about a weekly or bi-weekly experience. And she said, "Daddy, when does basketball start back?" And I was very proud. Not college football. That's not an obsession. We love it, but it's not an obsession. But basketball is an obsession. And she came and she was like, "When does basketball start back?" And I realized I'd already made a disciple of a little 4-year-old girl as a lover of basketball. I think we have a reign problem, an obsession problem.
Say it louder for the people in the back.
So yeah, like when Jesus reigns over those spaces, just kind of take this in, whoever's listening. Like, disciples are just being made. It's not even a process. It's not even like something you got to think about, because you're obsessed with how you treat each other, and how you honor, and how you talk, and the way you spend money, and the way you make money, and the way you create justice and equality, and all those things. Disciples are being made. So if Jesus can reign over this city, in conclusion, I think we're going to see disciple making movements and revival happening in our culture quite a bit.
Come, Lord Jesus.
Man,
if people want to learn more about Brave Cities, is there a way for them to connect with you guys?
I told Brian, you're dealing with two guys that are about as computer illiterate as they come. We have a website, bravecities.com.
There it is.
It's basically just an ugly gray page where you can put in your email address. When you do that, we receive them, and we can say, "Hey, let's talk more about this." We're actually going to start having some online conversations. Myself and Hugh and a good brother who's building another awesome work in Tampa, Florida, named John Dangler, called Well Built Cities. And we're just going to try to talk and do the best we can to gather more city builders around this idea. And really, gather is really not the right word. It's really just partner with work together, create that distributed network of builders and innovators, entrepreneurs, workers, table builders. And so, yeah, be looking for a book titled Brave Cities. I don't want to even say the subtitle because we change it every 2 weeks. Within the next 6 to 12 months, the book is finished, but we're in the editing process, and that is rough. The website is online, but it's just the page, and then also be looking and listening for some conversations to happen.
Well,
how'd I do?
Yeah, it was good. It was good. Everyone who's listening right now, just ask the Lord what he would have you to do next and respond. And I know we are so grateful, man, for you, for Hugh, the embodiment, the prophetic signpost you are. And I learn from you every time I'm with you. And we're really looking forward to what the Spirit of God's going to birth through this book, through these conversations. And we really want to be a part of it. So thank you. Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Hey,
thanks, guys.
You're welcome, man. You're welcome. So bravecities.com or org?
.com.
All right,
or org. I don't, probably both, but I know it's .com.
That's right, because you doubled the money spent. You got both. Hey, listen, next week we get to have a conversation with Bree Mills, who's leading an amazing network of extended spiritual families in Australia. And man, she did a session. You guys remember the session at the MicroChurch conference?
Yeah.
That was like the hidden history of MicroChurch.
Yeah.
In England and Western Europe. That was so moving. So be here for that. Again, Taylor, thanks so much, man.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you.
Anytime.